G'day folks, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Snowy's Camping Show. As usual, myself and Lauren, there's never anyone different, so I don't know why we say that every episode.
Except interviews.
Except interviews, yeah, good point. Before we jump into our topic today, make sure you subscribe, tell all your friends about us too, either via YouTube or your favourite podcast app, wherever you tune in, listen, watch us. Today we're talking about probably one of our most popular products in the shop. I would say a range of products. I would think, why are you smiling at me like that?
Nothing. I just
Have I forgotten something?
No, I just had this thought that popped into my head and I can't stop laughing inside.
Have we ever got through an intro without just getting sidetracked just before we actually?
I'm just imagining next episode going, welcome to the Snowy's Camping Show with Teresa and John. Just as a bit of a joke.
Anyway, we are still recording. I think Lauren's, we might have to stop because she's lost it. But I'm going to keep going and give her a chance to recover. But today we're talking about a really popular range of products, the Coleman Instant Up tents, because we get heaps of questions about them. We sell loads of these. The warehouse gets truckloads of them in all the time. They're a really popular and affordable family camping tent. Have you composed yourself now?
Yeah,
Given you time?
I'm getting there.
All right.
Yep.
Well, you jump back in whenever you're ready. There's quite a range of Instant Up tents. They've evolved a lot over the years. They've been around for the over a decade that I've been here at Snowy's, and I know this it started off with a very basic Silver Series, which has evolved a lot.
Yeah,
and they've created a sort of updated series, and they've got another updated series again, and it could get quite confusing when you first jump in to try and work out which one's for me and what are all the differences. So
yeah, I mean, I know some tent brands, you know, they'll pick a tent and a model and it'll pretty much stay the same for 6 years, you know, like when you're onto a good thing, don't sort of change it.
Yeah.
And so that can be pretty easy to keep track of. But I think with Coleman, even though there have been a bit of changes and, you know, tent names change and whatever, what am I thinking or how am I trying to word it? The structure of the tent range or the tent series mostly stays the same. Do you know what I mean? They have like a base level and a mid level and a top level, and whatever sort of they name change or extra features and whatever, they still sort of fit into that category. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, the frame itself has remained largely unchanged. When you talk about their just base 4-person or 6-person tent, it's remained largely unchanged. But,
yeah, it has.
The additions have been larger ones which have the same sort of materials that the frame's made of but a slightly different configuration. And then as you step up through sort of pricing, it's fabrics that get upgraded really, and features, I suppose, to make it more livable. So,
But we do get asked the question all the time, you know, what's the difference between, you know, this 6P Gold and this 6P Northstar, or, you know, how do I know which one that I want to go with? Because the reality is that I think it would be fair to say that the Coleman Instant Up tent range generally dominates the market for that sort of family camping entry level sort of tent option.
Yep. I
mean, obviously there are other brands out there that do an awesome alternative, but the Coleman Instant Up tents do have that dominating sort of platform.
Yep. So we'll run through the range today, and I think at the end we'll kind of give a bit of a summary of maybe best that question that you said, what's best for me. We'll maybe try and categorize them a little bit to help people sort of guide them. I'll mention too that they are really a family camping tent. If you're after something that is for really extreme conditions, these have some limitations because they are made for livable family camping. There's nice upright sides, heaps of room inside, relatively easy to set up. They're not designed for gale force winds, but if you set them up in full, and you should always set them up in full, guy ropes and everything, they're still really good in you know, heavy rains and windy weather. And
like we've done a couple of episodes on managing things like unexpected wind and rain or preparing for that sort of weather when you're away and things like tray springs and whatever. Jump back to that episode. We'll put the link in the show notes if you want a bit of a rehash on that. But it's like you are right in that if you understand the limitations of your tent and you have a bit of knowledge and expertise in how to support it and potentially offset those limitations to a certain extent, there's no reason why you can't get more out of your tent. And I think that the reality is that the more you understand that, the more you actually do get out. I know I just sort of repeated myself there, but in the sense that often when we get product reviews for things, right, you'll see someone might have had an experience where they're like, you know, we had a bit of wind and the tent didn't hold up and I'm really disappointed. And then you'll get someone else who's got a 5-star rating on exactly the same tent and they're like, we've been all around Australia and we've smashed this and it's been through literally hurricanes. And then you look at the photos and you can see they've got tracer springs, they've got all their guy ropes out. When the rains come in, they've dropped their awning poles and you know what I mean? Like they've worked with their tent and they've had this totally different outcome to the experience with an exactly the same product as someone else who doesn't have that knowledge and understanding.
Yep.
And they've had a poor experience.
Yeah. It's got to apply some common sense in situations. But these certainly take you, well, you can certainly travel all around Australia with them, but really good for a family, really livable. So offer a good balance with that.
Yeah, I
family
agree.
camping.
And affordable too.
Yeah, absolutely. So jumping in sizes, first of all, now we talked tents first, but just before the episode, we said, well, there's the swagger now, which could get into the swag tent argument. But you won't admit that you're wrong there yet. We're going to park that.
Are we?
Yeah.
Lucky escape.
Because we're trying to make this episode go 30 minutes and I don't think we've done a very good job so far. But so there's now a swagger one person. Which is just released like a week or two ago before we filmed this episode.
Literally brand new.
So you can get an Instant Up tent from one person through to what they say.
Yeah, they do 1, 2, 3 in the swagger size.
Yeah, yeah.
And essentially the frame of the swagger is exactly the same frame as in terms of materials, pole, gauge, all of that sort of jazz as the Instant Up, the rest of the Instant Up range. It's just slightly a different shape.
But it's a swag dimension, the swagger. So it's not a stand-up thing. But then when you get into like the stand-up tents, they've got 4-person right through to what they say is 10-person, and as all manufacturers seem to say it's a 10-person tent, and then they show how you can squeeze 10 people on this sort of floor space. But in reality, it's a 6 to maybe 8-person
I've always
tent.
been told when you're going, you know, if a tent says it's 4-person, what they're meaning is that 4 people could go in there without mattresses, just their own bodies and lie sort of top to tail on the floor space, and you'd fit 4 people in there comfortably. And that's sort of based from obviously the original days where people were just taking yoga mats and very
hike mats, which
limited camping gear. And they still sort of subscribe to that same sizing in this day and age, even though people, you know, take monster 15 centimetre residential mattresses with them camping and stuff like that.
You can probably half it, I'd say, if you're half
so
the
like
stated.
A 4-person, for example, the Coleman Instant Up 4-person tents, you could get a queen mattress in it. Yep. Maybe it has single.
Yeah, we've done videos on all these, and we actually throw airbeds in all our in the videos that we do to show you how you can fit mats in there.
Yeah, so I think the 4-person in those videos fits like a 1 double high airbed, for example. So it's like bear that in mind, even though it says 4-person. Realistically, 2 people with your bags and clothing and stuff inside the tent. That's probably all you're going to fit in it.
It fits 2 single mats with a little bit of space down the middle. Yeah, it'll fit 4 hike style mats. With not much space to walk. So
just bear that in mind. Don't necessarily go off the person count. Just check the dimensions.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So starting off with their base model, which is their Silver Series. Now I remember when these first came out, I don't know if you remember when they didn't even have a full fly on them. The sides were cut out.
I do remember they were like a cap fly.
Yeah. They were still waterproof because the inner on the Silver Series, the Gold Series not so much, but the inner on the Silver Series actually still has a waterproof fabric, but it's not actually seam sealed. So maybe protection from a light shower.
Is it waterproof or is it water resistant?
Well, I've not seen any stats on it, but it feels like it's got a PU coating on it. So I would say it would be waterproof. I don't know what the waterhead rating would be, but I would think if you had that set up in a light shower, it would keep you dry, but the seams aren't sealed. The windows aren't designed to be used without the fly sheet on and keep you dry in the rain. So
fair weather for no fly.
That's right. Yeah. So always use the fly, but that waterproof fabric probably stems from them first having the partial fly, so that the inner was also waterproof.
And I mean, realistically, the Silver Series, even the tarp has a 1500, 1,500 mil waterhead rating.
Yep.
And the floor doesn't come with a waterhead rating either. So basically, Silver Series, it's essentially the base model in the range, isn't it?
Yep.
Really.
But the frame's the same.
The frame is the same, but it's the
all
fabrics and stuff that puts it more in that sort of 2 to 3 season category, which I would say is still okay because the Swagger Series is made from the same materials. It sort of has the same specs. It's just different shape and size.
Yep.
And I have taken my Swaggers and they've been smashed with rain and they've still done okay. So it's not like it's, 1,500 mils is still pretty decent. But if you're sort of, going on an extended trip where you're expecting periods of rain every day and the material's not going to be able to dry out very well, or if you're camping in the rain, you have to pack up and set up and you know what I mean? You're just being aware of those limitations. But I'd say that tent, if you're someone who likes to camp in the fairer months, the silver tent is fine.
But even still, 1,500 mil waterhead is more than waterproof for what you need for that style of tent. You're not in gale force, wind-driven rain.
Yeah.
You're in a shower in a relatively accessible, campsite. So it's going to keep you dry in most conditions. And the floor being that tarp material, I don't know of any tarps that have actually got a waterhead rating, but their water is impermeable. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
So it's a completely waterproof floor, but it has that crinkly feel about it. So when you lay it out, you walk on it, you can hear your feet standing on the tarp, like those silver or blue tarps.
But that's the traditional flooring of tents, isn't it? I know the tents I grew up in had that same floor and never had any problems with it.
You can repair it. It lasts for ages, but if you do get a hole in it, you can just use tape or glue it. It's just a tough fabric. So and I guess it's affordable, which is why these Silver Series are an affordable price. So the Silver Series comes in a 4 and a 6. And you can get, this is the Evo Series
too,
now.
can't you?
Well, you can get an 8P, which is like a side entry tent, but the 4 and the 6 are the Evo, and they've got that Evo awning that kind of goes on the side. So this is where it kind of gets a little bit complicated because there's a Silver Series, but then there's the Evo Series, but the Silver and Evo are mashed together in 2 models.
Yeah.
So the 4 and the 6 has got a standard awning that can be set up just from the tent. But if you want to zip that down at night, you lose the awning, but you can add the Evo.
We can talk more about the Evos later.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
You are jumping ahead.
Right.
My episode structure, Benji.
But the silver is also the Evo, and you've not considered that in your structure.
I've written the Evo here. See, current silver and gold models.
Who's running this episode?
Did you even read the paper that I gave you?
Oh, yeah, I did, but then I just made my own version, and now I'm doing it properly. So back on track. 4, 6 and an 8. And the 8's got a large side entry and a big awning.
Double room.
Yep.
And I think, hang on a minute. I say double room, but I don't actually think it is technically double room. I think it's like a single large rectangular space, but it has an internal dividing wall that you can sort of hook in to those little loopy things. So if you want a large, big single room, you can. But if you want to put a divider up, you can. But it's not a fully stitched internal wall.
No, that's
in the
right.
8P.
I'd have to double check. I didn't check the details before this. I'm pretty sure it does come with a divider. I know when you get up to the gold, there's some of the features that you get added in.
Yeah.
But I think the 8P, we'll see if I can look it up while I'm on the phone here.
So
while I'm on the I don't know what I'm saying.
I don't know. Should
I
take over now?
You can take over and move on, and I'm just going to double check the wall on the 8P there.
If I start following this schedule and talk about the gold tents now, are you going to be okay with that?
Just
okay. So silver. So essentially, silver's your sort of base model or your very sort of entry model. When you move up to the next step, you've got your gold range. It's a different color as well, obviously. It's got a bit of gold and a bit of green. It has a little bit – see, you're going to do your fabric nerd specs wig out thing in a minute.
So it does – there is a divider in there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm butting in.
So just like I said.
Whether it's removable or not.
Yeah, it's removable.
Well, if you were so confident, why didn't you just say, don't worry, Ben, I'm confident.
Okay.
You just had to double check before you dissed me.
I didn't.
Sorry, keep going.
We're getting carried away.
We're trying to keep this to half hour.
Gold.
So I'll do the fabric nerd
10,
thing. Okay.
Fabric nerd thing, right? Because I remember we've talked about this before. The silver range, 150 denier. Gold range has a slightly higher grade material, but it's 75 denier. 185 thread count.
Yep.
So when you're comparing specs of materials just on their own, you can't always just rely on one element of that being the denier, because at a glance it looks like the silver has better materials, but it technically doesn't.
Not necessarily. So
you know what I mean?
Just a higher denier doesn't mean better materials. So 75 denier means it's a smaller thread size, but there's more threads in the same sort of area of fabric.
The thread count. So it's like a finer thread, but more dense. So technically,
So more smaller
so you have to look at
together.
the whole specs. But either way, the gold is a slightly sort of next step up on materials, just ever so slightly.
It's a softer fabric. It sort of flows a bit more. It's nicer to touch, and I think it's probably got a high tensile strength and all those sort of things, but we won't go into all of that.
Waterhead rating is also higher. It's 3,000 mils. So again, just that next step
which
up.
Which is loads.
It also doesn't have a waterhead rating on the floor. However, instead of it being that woven polyethylene, it's actually PVC coated. 420 denier PVC coated fabric. So it's like that quite heavy, green, rubbery, smooth flooring, which is obviously not going to get water in it.
It feels really nice. The floor of the Gold Series.
Nice.
It's got you can feel
not crinkly at all.
Fabric on the outside and then a smooth lining on the inside. It would be completely waterproof, and it doesn't have that crinkly feel when you walk on it. You can't hear yourself walking on it.
Yeah.
Folds easier when you pack it up. All of those fabrics just fold easier.
But again, same frame as the silver. It's just the upgrade of all of those extra bits.
Yes. But there's a wider variety of sizes when you go to the Gold Series.
Yes, in the Gold Series. So you have your 4.
4 and the 6. Yep.
And the 6.
Base model, yep.
And then you have the 8.
So there's an 8, which is like a side entry, slightly different frame.
Side entry. But you can set it up like the 8 silver and 8 gold are basically the same tent, just the materials upgraded between the two. You can enter through the sides or you can enter through the ends.
But a few extra features in the gold, little pockets and those sort of things.
Things like that. And then there's also a 10p gold, which is similar sort of setup to the 8, which is again a double room, side entry or end entry.
Yep.
And it's just that extra bit bigger.
Yeah. And then there's this. I'm struggling to follow your flow here because we haven't done. So there's 4 PV and 6 PV as well, which are darkroom Evo. They're Gold Series as well.
Yeah. So
we've done their research here.
But
they've changed the name, so they haven't included gold in there anymore.
This episode is supposed to be so easy, and I feel like it's just gone to a mess.
It has. So these vegetable ones used to have gold in it, and I'm just realising that they've dropped the gold out of it because you've done your research and follow your structure better.
Because what happened prior to last year, I think, potentially, they used to just have a silver, a gold, and a darkroom PV, which essentially had the darkroom with the vestibule, right? So since then they've had the upgrade and they still have the silver and the gold and the darkroom. They still maintain those 3 different levels.
Yep.
Except now they have introduced the Evo, which applies to the silver and gold in some sizes, and they've changed the darkroom PV to being Northstar.
Yeah.
So it's still the same 3 levels in that sense. And so some people out there might just have a standard gold or they might have a standard silver and not an Evo. And so that comes up a little bit with feedback from customers and confusion because they're like, well, I have a Coleman Gold 6P. Why won't this Evo shade awning work? Yeah. Because this year Coleman upgraded them, or I think last year sometime Coleman upgraded them for there to be a gold Evo version. And that's why you need that Evo version of the tent to be able to add the shade awnings and things like that.
That was that change too. We get a lot of questions around my old one or my friend's has got a zip-on awning on the side. Why doesn't mine have that? But that
because that's the gold.
That's when
that's
they
just
changed
the original
it over.
gold, and now the gold Evos don't have that. And so that's how it can be a little bit confusing. Yeah. But in terms of when you're first looking at Coleman tents and you're trying to work out, okay, well, what do I look at first? The reason why I structured this episode the way that I structured this episode
it makes
is
sense
because
now that I think about it.
Silver, gold, Northstar.
Yep.
they're the 3 tiers. And then once you sort of work out what your tiers are, then you can look within the range of that particular tier to determine what tent is best for you.
So by what you've got here, there's 3 silver series. There's 4 in the gold, the 4, the 6, the 8 and the 10, which are loosely the silver series just with better fabrics.
Yeah.
Yep. And a slightly larger 10-person series.
Yep.
And then
so from there you've got your Evo options.
Yep.
And so your Evo option it's called Evo essentially because it's the evolution on the standard silver and gold tents, right?
Yeah, they give the silver series the Evo name as well, which is even more confusing.
Evolution, silver. Yeah. So Evo essentially abbreviated for evolution.
Yep.
Silver evolution, gold evolution.
Yep.
So essentially all that means is that prior to last year, and this is all my opinion and interpretation of it, by the way, I'm not a Coleman expert, but prior to last year, a lot of people were buying the silver and gold tents, loving them, thinking that they were great, wanting an option to potentially extend their awning space, and there wasn't that available.
Yep.
So then last year, Coleman introduced the Evo/Evolution, which then gives you the option to purchase or as an additional extra, the Evo shade awning.
Yeah, which is really cool.
And attaches to your Evo tent. And it essentially allows you to have this massive big annex awning space. You can put the walls down. You can have one side up. You know what I mean? It gives you a bit more versatility.
Much more flexibility. It's side walls and shelter kind of in one for an Instant Up tent.
And it works really well with those Evo tents. So you can get them in the silver and the gold.
Yep.
But again, it only works with the evolution.
So you can't. It's not backwards compatible. So you can't get an old 4P gold and use an Evo shade shelter.
Yeah.
You need to have
the 4P that evolution
Evo,
of the 4P gold
which
Evo.
I guess it's a bit of a pain in the bum for some people, but I guess that's just the evolution of these tents. Coleman are constantly looking at making them better and appealing to their customers. And in that process, some features aren't compatible, I suppose.
And whilst we're sort of on the Evo, the additional benefit to being able to use that shade awning is that if you are also using a gazebo, and, obviously technically Coleman gazebo because it's a Coleman tent and a Coleman shelter, it is compatible to like a 2.4 or a 3.0 gazebo where it will attach along the edges and down the line. So you can sort of set your tent up and have this little mini awning space tunnel type thing into a larger gazebo. And I haven't tested it out, but in theory, it should work on any sort of 2.43 meter gazebo because the attachments to the poles are generic, and I think attachment to the top along the top is just Velcro.
The difference with the Coleman and the Austrail gazebos is I know the Coleman have a complete like a full length of Velcro or hook and loop on their gazebo, whereas I know Austrail have got patches sections, which line up with their walls. Would still work.
You'd still be able to make it work.
Probably also worth mentioning that most of the gold series where the awning on the sides are the same size, so 3 meters with awnings that you peg up that are attached to the tent, not the Evo awning that are attached to the tent, have that strip of Velcro too, so you can actually attach it up underneath the gazebo.
Yep.
Not on the silver series, but most of the gold series awnings have that.
Yeah. So if you're still with us and you haven't pulled your hair out or scrubbed your eyeballs because you've got no idea what's going on, we'll move on to the Northstar, which is the top tier of Coleman's range ultimately.
Which is probably the most popular
I'd
series,
say it is the most popular, So
heaps of features.
Previously, these tents were known as darkroom PVs.
The 4 and the 6,
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure when the bigger ones as well?
No, they were. Brought out the 4 and the 6, which is P. I'm not sure, but V was vestibule. So they had. If you compare, you need to see the picture to really understand it. But if you compare a 4P with a 4PV, the V stands for vestibule, so it's got an extra pole at the front to pull. It's got extra fly coverage. It sort of gives
you a bit of like a cap over the door, extended cap over the door, right?
Weather protected storage, more weather protected. So you can actually stand up in the awning at the front.
And it's twofold because that dark room, which is now known as a Northstar, so let's just refer to it as a Northstar from now on because we don't want to confuse the heck out of anyone.
Even though they have dark room. Whenever we do a video, half the video is taken up just saying these these names. Coleman Instant Up, updated Northstar Darkroom.
Northstar Darkroom tents. So the Northstar range is a darkroom tent.
Yep.
Which essentially means that it has a coating of light suppression, whatever, on the underside. Blackness,
black, maybe
some
polyurethane coating on the inside.
Yeah, exactly, to make it darker. And that vestibule, twofold, extra storage space undercover, but because of that darkroom technology, if it didn't have a vestibule and you just had that whole front open and relatively accessible to light, it would negate the need of you having a darkroom fly, especially in those smaller tents. So extending a bit of a vestibule area out the front cuts a bit of light and makes that darkroom technology more effective.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
And so the Northstars are fully lit now. They've got like that inbuilt lighting system that's powered by, your battery or your power bank or whatever.
And by inbuilt, it's zipped in, so you can replace them. I know some tents have actually got it integrated into the poles
like stitched in and stuff. Yeah.
You can actually remove these and put new strip lighting in if you wanted.
Yeah. So the Northstars, also just taking one little tiny step back, they're not an evolution tent, so they're not compatible with those shade awnings.
Yeah, good one. So if you want the Evo, look for the Evo tent. If you want the flexibility
of that, the flexibility of that shade awning, you got to get the Evo tent.
Yeah, the 4PV and the 6PV, you get more undercover storage.
More undercover storage just with the tent on its own. It's got the darkroom coating. Blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Can't use the Evo shade awning.
Yep.
But yeah, Northstar essentially is exactly the same materials as the gold. It just has that coating on it.
Mm-hmm.
Still got the same water head rating. Still got the same floor.
Yep.
Still got the same frame.
And has the integrated lighting.
And has integrated lighting and a little bit of extra. Mm-hmm. But the benefit of the Northstar is that it comes in that Boss 10P size, which is actually way more massive than the gold 10P, both still 10P tents.
Yeah.
And it's a 3-room tent.
And it's got all the features you need. The awning across the front has got multiple setup options. Check out our product video on that.
Yeah.
But there's 3 sections to it, so you can set up 1, 2 or 3 sections. If you set up 3, it's a full length awning down the side, and then it's got walls that it can either be tucked away or folded out on the side as well, or put out as extra awning space.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a versatile awning on the front. On top of that, you can set up the ends and the back as an awning too. So if you're in a really hot environment, you can set up shade almost right around the tent, get that ventilation through and make it quite comfortable. So the 10P is a lot of really good options, really versatile family tent.
But also at the cost of being quite big and heavy to move around.
Yeah.
Like it's a 2-person job really.
To set up, and these frames, actually the 10P has got that hoop frame, and I quite like that. When it's set up, it's actually probably more stable, I think, than some of the kind of spidery frames.
You can still set it up on your own, but it is heavy. Like I don't think I could lift and move it around on my own easily.
Yeah. I mean, all of these I'd suggest 2 people, because most of the time a damage with these frames will occur when a little gust of wind comes up and it blows the frame and it twists. And as soon as they twist, when they're not pegged out, that's when you can run into trouble. So you always want to have someone around so that while you're running to get a peg and your hammer, someone's just holding the tent there, so
that's
it doesn't blow across the campsite. So, but the 10P does have a slightly different frame structure. It's got 4 hoops, so when you set it up, it just lays flat until you peg it out. Whereas the other ones, all the other ones, have got a semi-freestanding structure. So if it's a calm day, and you put the frame in place, the tent loosely just sits there, without being pegged out.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say, sort of to summarize, if you've made it this far. Well done. Congratulations.
Any clearer at all? Which Instant Up tent you'd like?
Looking at the Coleman Instant Up tents, just bear in mind the 3 tiers: silver, gold, Northstar.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a fair weather camper, you don't need your tent to really, do anything other than your odd weekend camping in late spring, early autumn through summer.
Happy to do without some of the bells and whistles to save a few dollars.
Correct. Happy to do without those. And you're not going to go anywhere extreme like camping on the top of a cliff face. The silver's perfectly fine.
I've got a silver and I did some outback travel with it. It's fine,
Gold, if you want something that's going to be a bit more suited to a year-round option.
Mm-hmm.
and you do want that value of a bit of extra waterhead rating and that PVC flooring and just that little bit more of an upgrade on materials and things like that, then the gold is a good option.
A little bit like going from fabric to leather seats in the same car, I suppose.
Yeah, that's actually probably a really good analogy to use there. And then the Northstar, which is darkroom, it's probably the most popular because despite the fact that people love camping, not many people actually want to wake up with the sun, which
people
is
seem to love it.
Weird to me.
I thought it was a big weird thing. Like,
no judgment.
I love the sun in the morning, but people love
they do.
The darkroom
and I mean,
technology.
obviously, if you've got little kids and you want them to sleep during, I don't know. There's a good argument for it. Not dissing anybody.
Yep.
So, but if that darkroom technology is important to you, for me, that's the reason why you would go for a Northstar over a gold. I would say that a gold is like your applicable, everyday, run-of-the-mill best option from the Instant Up range.
Yep.
The only reason why you would necessarily go to the Northstar is if you want that dark room coating.
Yeah.
And
probably the
if
best.
you're maybe a beginner and you got the built-in lights and stuff, that can be handy as well. But if you're a camper and you just want a new tent and you've already got lights and you've already got some other gear and you like waking up with the sun, the golds are perfect.
The lighted features are nice to have. There's a little button there that you can leave on glow at night so the kids can find a switch at night. Like it's a cool feature, but I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker. Probably another consideration with the vegetable ones is if you take stuff out of your car and you need to store it out of the weather overnight, the 4PV and the 6PV are the only two that have got that larger vegetable storage for, say, overnight storage.
And
so
they're Northstar ones, aren't they? Like
Northstar
the
darkroom.
lighted up versions as well.
Yeah.
So I think that probably covers it. I don't think I have a huge amount else to add to this.
No, so we'll just finish off with that tent pick. And if you want a family tent that kind of does everything for all seasons, heaps of room, three room tent with all the features. Yep. The 10P Northstar is lighted. So the 10P lighted Northstar darkroom is the best option.
Only on a very final note to say farewell, Trace Springs upgraded pegs.
They all come with lightweight pegs.
They all come with lightweight pegs for no wind on a lovely turfed caravan park, soft, loamy soil.
Yep.
Upgrade your pegs, get some Trace Springs. You've got a good all-round tent.
6 to 10 upgraded pegs at least for the guy ropes.
Yep. Cool.
I think we just went over half hour.
We did.
And I don't know if we made it any clearer, but
anyway, hopefully that helps somebody. If you have any questions about the Coleman Instant Up tent range,
any of them,
or even if you've got one, I'd actually be genuinely interested if anybody out there has one to let us know how long you've had it for and like what's the worst conditions you've been through with your tent, and you know, just I love hearing about the limitations of some of this gear and that real world application for it. So
because we get all mixed
get in
reports.
touch. We do.
Cool.
Thanks.
Well, that was it for Coleman Instant Up tents.
Catch you next week.
Thanks for watching. See you later.